This one was really cool just to give you that kind of tingle, that sense of adventure and excitement and that, oh shit, I knew it, it was a piece of the island in the sky. Oh, I love it. One Piece, chapter 251, Overture. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, and I'm here to bring you another review on the awesome, the awe-inspiring, the jaw-dropping tale of One Piece. Our last chapter saw us, of course, with Satori, the old bowling ball man, being defeated and knocked the fuck out by Luffy and Sanji, and that's how things ended up, of course, for us. So things pick up, though, back in the Hidden Cloud Village with the Shandians, and the little boy Aisa, or Aisa, however his name is pronounced, is actually going and having a conversation with the tattooed fellow Wyper, the angry Indian-looking guy. And he says, wait, so hold on a second. Your mantra tells you that two of them were wiped out or whatever, and then knocked out. And so this mantra, whatever this ability is, this force that they have, what have you, he says, yeah. He goes, and one of them was Ganfal, or was probably Ganfal, but the other one was one of the priests. And he goes on to explain that it was not the one that Ganfal was fighting. It was the Blue Sea people that took him out. So anyway, Wyper goes to get the group together over here, some of his warriors, because they figure that this is the best time to go and attack the upper yard, and to be able to take out these priests, the other priests, and Enel himself, I guess. So because that's obviously their end game. So we kind of see that brief interaction. This one skips all over the place, so you're gonna have to bear with me, and I may not get it all in because I'm not perfect. And then it goes and it takes us to what's left of Satori, just kind of laying there, and just knocked out. And we see that Usopp's like, hey guys, I found the ship. Come on, And I forgot to mention earlier too, Usopp uses this cool grappling hook thing that he made that was pretty neat, that we wound up seeing in the last chapter or the chapter before, to actually get up to those higher heights. One of his inventions, which are kind of neat. So it kind of reminds me of like Data from the Goonies, but whatever, because he's got a bunch of inventions, but like they don't always work like they're supposed to. So anyways, so then he's like, come on, you guys, we got to get going. So, so Sanji and Luffy are like, okay, good job. You located the ship, and they're running, they're chucking for it, So then Usopp goes and he sees it on the Milky Road up, kind of above him and a little bit far off. And he's like, here, grab onto my body, and they're like, what? Grab onto your body? So Luffy goes and grabs onto his body, and he goes and fires the grappling hook deal up there, right? It's funny because he's like, yeah, this is great, and he's boasting about how he's so good and what he did and everything else, And as they're going up there, you just see like bang, clang, boom, all this stuff happening. You can assume that on the way up, because he couldn't really control it as he was trying to reel things in, that they were maybe banging into it and hitting some of these surprise balls, or maybe just some trees and things, because he latched onto the ship as the ship was going out. Bottom line is they wind up making it to the ship, which is great. And it's funny because you see them all and they're just like, oh, is everybody alive? And they're like, you idiot. And Luffy's like, you should have just let me use my body to stretch, would have been easier. But he was trying to be helpful, so it's okay. So then we go and we're taken to, and we don't see them in particular. Well, first of all, we wind up meeting one of the other vassals, one of the other priests. I'm sorry, and they don't really say who he is. They just sort of show a picture of him here. So there we go. This fella over here. And he's an angry looking one. He looks like he hasn't gotten laid since candy bars were a nickel. He definitely does not look too happy over there. But anyway, so they wind up talking about how, I guess they're having a little meeting over there, and they're talking about how, of course, Satori was beaten, and then he's like, oh, and Satori was weak and this and that and blah, 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 but nobody will escape the forest and all this other sort of stuff. And then one of the other priests over here, I don't know why I changed the page, one of the other priests on the next page, he's talking about how he knows, because they can obviously sense or feel the presence, that he knows that these Shandians, these guerrillas, are coming to attack the upper yard, and that's a mistake, and they're going to have to go up against the priests and the almighty god Enel, and a lot of these people are very full of themselves up here. But anyway, this is a really cool chapter for the different revelations that happen, and that's not one of them. So just wanted to cover over that briefly. So those guys obviously are aware of what's coming and aware of who's still around, and they're going to go split off, do do their due diligence, attack people, however they're going to do it, right? So then you go and you get the Shandians, and the Shandians are going and riding on their, riding on the clouds and stuff like that, cruising in their formation, getting all together. And we see I imagine these are probably like supposed to be the elite warriors of the Shandians, because there's Brahm or Braham, Kamakiri, Genbo, and then Raki. She was actually the one that was, it wasn't introduced formally in the last chapter. It was kind of talked about a little bit, or she was talking anyway, and trying to insinuate and explain that, hey, Ganfal is not particularly bad. He shouldn't be our enemy. So, and then Wyper, of course, is being an asshole, as usual. So they're in formation. They're going to go and they're going to attack the temple and this and that, and that's where they're going for. And then we go and we see the 3 priests that are left. I mean, these guys, they're all getting ready to go and attack, and they're going to bring back Shandora, blah, blah, blah. And then you get the 3 priests that are still standing, and they're just like, the Shandians are here. So I don't know if they're all together or if this is just sort of like what they feel with their mantra or what have you. We're then going and we're taken to Chopper, and we see that Chopper is back up on the boat in the sacrificial altar, as is Ganfal, as is Pierre. He doesn't know why. He sees that they're wounded. He's like, what's going on? I got to heal up their wounds. I got to bandage them up, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden he sees a bunch of like these birds come in, these huge birds, and you're like, what the hell's going on, So, and I just wanted to make sure that I kind of, got everything covered fairly well anyway. So we wind up having... it's kind of neat because early on in the chapter, if you remember, we were left in the last chapter with Nami being up in the tree and seeing something, but she really just left us hanging. We didn't know what. She was like, what? So Zoro and Robin are kind of pressing her for that information, and she's like, no, we gotta move over here. We gotta get closer. I gotta see for myself because I'm not really sure, what I even saw. So that happened earlier in the chapter, and then it progresses through to this part of the chapter, and as they're weaving through the forest and getting to where they get to, she's like, son of a bitch. She's like, I thought that was weird to see that 2-story house with no stairs and this and that. And then it really is kind of neat because it comes out, and they come out on this they come out on this cliff, and they see that there's this house sitting here, right? And the big revelation is that this actual island, this part of this island, actually broke off of Jaya and rose up into the sky. Robin was talking about some of the things that are here that are actual things that they're not Sky Island type of things. They're actual things that you would see down on a regular thing. So this is an actual island, and for somehow or another, 400 years ago was raised up into there. So obviously the plot thickens with the mystery and the adventure on that, which is cool. But the real revelation is that this half of this house over here, because they do the little flashback thing, when they show that house that what's his name lived in, God, I forget his name now for the life of me, but Luffy called him Diamond Head guy, but and the monkey men over there, when he was when they showed that the plywood front of it and everything, and then the back of it, they're like, oh, it's only like a half a house. I thought that was just like built like that behind the plywood thing, and it was just kind of like that it is how it is. This house was actually, it's the other half of this house. And that's why, of course, there's no stairs in this one, but it actually split in half, and this somehow rose up and is actually part of Jaya, which I thought was pretty freaking cool. So as you get the next page, you go back briefly to Chopper over here, and these birds that are there are these giant south birds, the birds that were found on Jaya that only point south, but they're like these giant, mutated ones, maybe because they're in the sky, they've just grown bigger over the years. I don't know. But it's really kind of cool how you wind up seeing all these different things happen over here. And then you kind of get okay, for whatever reason, the island of Jaya split apart, and part of it ended up here, right? And you see these Southbird and Joe. So then it's like all of a sudden the revelation comes to him, so the El Dorado that Nolan claimed was once on this island didn't sink to the bottom of the sea 400 years ago. All this time, the missing Jaya was floating in the frickin' sky. Now, that may not be a big revelation for some because many have gone through this over here. But, 20, 30 chapters ago when they were just initially going and talking about things, and I knew there was a Sky Island, and I heard the tale of Nolan and everything else, that was my immediate thought, was that the island nothing ever sank, that it obviously went up into the sky. And as I said, that is kind of it's a Captain Obvious thing, being that the next arc was Skypiea. But you have to think about it from the perspective of a first-time reader like me that doesn't read ahead, or somebody that's reading this that, again, doesn't know what happens in the future, hasn't read message boards, hasn't talked with others about this. And even me, I have more contact because of the comment sections and talking with others and things like that. But imagine, whatever it was, 8-10 years ago when this came out, for those of you that have been following along, you read this chapter and it's like, holy shit, because you have no idea. You don't, you didn't know. You don't know what's coming. You don't know Skypiea. You don't know about the god Enel. You just briefly been introduced to these things. So for me, it was a very, very cool thing to kind of see that all come together and just be like, what? And it's neat to see that it was actually like just straight up a piece of the island somehow broke off and rose up. So I can't wait to find out what happened with that, because we can presume that it's been up there then for 400 years, and maybe that was the start of Skypiea, or maybe Skypiea has been around since before then, but maybe somehow or another this island was risen up from some former inhabitants from this Shandora. Who knows? I mean, I don't know what the deal was, and I'm certainly excited to see about it. So my chapter question, that's where the chapter ends up. My chapter question for you folks is, did you see the, even though I thought it was fairly obvious, when you were first reading One Piece, for those of you that didn't cheat and go ahead or skip arcs or anything like that, for those of you that sat down and read it, first chapter to wherever, or watched it, did you know, before this happened, that a piece of Jaya actually broke off, or did you kind of call that one? Was that something that you thought as well, or did you read this chapter and go, oh, son of a bitch, that's awesome, Either way, whether you know, whether you don't know, leave your comments down below and the answer to that question if you'd like to answer it. Personally, I think it's a great adventure, and really, really am enjoying it so far. So that's what I have to say, and that's my 2.5 cents, which equals about a dime. So nonetheless, feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you have not done so already. We will look forward to catching all of you in the next Fun Nation.
Ooh, that's my girl Nami climbing the trees and figuring out the mysteries of Skypiea.